Hindsight, as the cliche goes, is 20/20. Viewing yesterday's events through today's lenses is tempting, but is wrong. And as you watch this documentary presented by the ACC Center for Public Policy and Political Studies, please keep in mind that it is inaccurate and misleading to judge the actions of the people involved. Real history is always too complex for simple good guy versus bad guy script lines. The people we chronicle acted based on the standards of the times in which they were born and raised. The stories we share reflect a clash not only of ethnicities, but also of generations. It is fascinating and instructive to watch the evolution of thinking about what was right and wrong in Austin. Men and women with good hearts and good intentions, but very different upbringings, fought over their vision of how Austin should be governed, who should have a voice in that government, and what that government's priorities should be. No matter how they seem to us with our 21st century standards, the vast majority of these people were hard-working, decent folks who were doing what they thought was in the best interest of the city they loved. The people on all sides of these tales, whether you agree with them or not, were never guilty of leaving the fight to someone else. Their struggles, their conflicts, their victories all became part of the fabric of Austin. As the JMF Video Political History team worked on this documentary, the students were inspired by this quote. "One generation that has created great change cannot pass on to its descendants the excitement, exhilaration, fear, or passion of its heady times. It may only pass on the results. However, it does have an obligation to share with those that reap the benefits of these sacrifices an understanding of the price paid for the better life its generations and descendants live." We hope that rather than judging those who have gone before, you will come away with a deeper appreciation of the price these Austinites paid for what you enjoy today.
Hello, I'm Dan Rather. Let's talk history. In 1968, Austin, Texas was a small college town experiencing an upturn in population and in the technological industry. However, the nation was in the midst of one of its most contentious years in history. The Tet Offensive began in January, prompting a vigorous student movement against the Vietnam War. The Mexican-American civil rights movement began to intensify, evident in the creation of the MALDEF, the NCLR, and the emergence of the Chicano movement. These factors coincided with a labor dispute at the Economy Furniture Factory. An attempt to unionize the plant fostered a movement that has forever changed the city of Austin. By 1968, owners Helen and Milton Smith had grown the Economy Furniture Company from a small upholstery shop to the largest furniture manufacturer west of the Mississippi River. Consequently, by 1968, Economy Furniture had assumed new methods of production and business practices, those common to big businesses in the South. Unfortunately, These practices usually exploited the workers. At Economy, the workforce, 90% of whom were Mexican American, suffered from low wages and little job advancement.
I went to work there, I think, in 1964, 65. I went in there making $1.15 an hour, which was the minimum wage at that time. Another striker named Jesse Romo, he had been there 8 years, and he was making $1.12. No, wait a minute, he was making $1.18. 8 years that he had been there, and that's all the money he was making, you know.
I learned all of the machinery, how to operate all the machinery and everything in my department, and there were several of us in there that did, you know, and then they fired the foreman that we had there, and the foreman, he was one of the Chicanos there, he was fired, and they went to Mississippi to hire a person that didn't even know how to do the work that we were doing. What he was doing, he was coming over and he would stand in front of a person doing his job, and that's how he was going to learn to be able to teach us or oversee us or boss us around and stuff like that.
Perhaps the biggest point of contention between the employees and management of Economy Furniture was the institution of a piecemeal incentive system.
Piecemeal is simply this: on a piece of furniture, on a sofa, you have armrest, you've got the frame, you've got a mattress, you've got the backrest. Those are all in pieces. At some point in time. Those are all carved out, large numbers. Then these are put together, glued together. So putting an armrest onto the frame is putting that piece on another piece. Now, the experts calculated what a normal worker could do in a set amount of time, within the hour. All of that was assigned, plus 10%. When the employees reached that 10%, that production level, another 10% was added, okay? And you reached that 20%, another 10% was added. So it was this fraudulent approach that if you work harder, you're going to make more. No, what was happening was your production was continuously raised so that you continued to make the same salary for 10, 20, 30% more production.
The piecemeal incentive system and poor working conditions had angered the workers at the furniture factory, prompting strong consideration of bringing a union to the Economy Furniture Company.
That is what we need to define. What is that union? And what it is a congregating of a group of people who don't really have any idea of what opportunity is, because they've not been in an area where there is opportunity. And the union comes in there and tells them, you know, you're better than you think you are. You're somebody you're a citizen of the United States, and you want to work someplace where you're going to get a decent wage and be respected.
In 1959, an attempt was made to unionize the Economy factory. The NLRB in Houston rendered a decision against the company, and a union election was ordered. However, Milton Smith found an influential ally to help oppose the union attempt, his great friend, Victor Ruiz. Victor Ruiz was the oldest worker at Economy Furniture besides Milton Smith himself. Victor had been with the company since the 1930s, when Economy was a small upholstery and repair shop in downtown Austin. Because he was so well respected by all the employees, he was asked to speak against the union on the company's behalf.
So he promised that if we didn't join the union, that he would give us more holidays, better pay, and even build some cabins on the 23 acres of land that he had there. So he sent me to all the people, and I went and talked to all of the people. We had the union election. That union lost miserably.
the outcome of the election was favorable for economy. After the union lost the vote, Milton rescinded the promises he had made to Victor and told him that he had misconstrued their agreement.
He said, "No, I didn't mean that I was going to do all that. He just left it at that." He said, "You misunderstood me." So I said, "The next time I'm going to go against the company in favor of the union."
In January of 1968, Frank Pancho Ramirez contacted James J. Johns, regional representative of the Upholsterers International Union of North America. A few weeks later, they began to meet with only a handful of workers and reveal their plans to organize a union at the factory.
I was there working in the sanitation department when my compadre Tony Quiroz and my other compadre Pancho Ramirez came over and told me about what they were attempting to do. There had been a previous time there where people had tried to organize and get into the union before, and that was defeated. And this time, we would decide that we were going to go all the way. We were going to make sure we did everything right, and we did.
My first knowledge of it all was sitting with my brother, supporting the restaurant bar industry in Austin on East First Street at Harold's Bar, and the union member Jimmy Johns with Pancho Ramirez, Lencho Hernandez, and Margarito Sauceda, Cowboy Sauceda, talking to the union member. They saw me walk in, they saw me sit down, we knew each other, we waved at each other, invited me over, and I sat down and talked to them. I learned then the first time that this was, this activity, this proposed union involvement was going to be at the same factory where my father worked and my father Victor Ruiz and my brother Jim Ruiz worked.
On February 10th, 1968, two former employees from Houston, both Mexican-American, accompanied James J. Johns on a visit to the factory to observe the working conditions. They found a disgruntled workforce eager to improve their working conditions. Shortly afterwards, rumors of the union attempt began to spread over the company. Economy responds by making communication among the employees more difficult and arduous.
We hardly had a chance to talk to anybody. They would get mad at us. You worked at your job, you had to stay at your spot. And they would keep an eye, especially when the rumor was around that they were trying to put the union in there. I mean, the supervisors and the plant manager would go down and they would be eyeballing you. They saw you walking around, they'd stop you and ask, "What are you doing?"
Economy could not quiet the rumors for long. Because Austin had segregated communities, most of the city's Mexican-American citizens lived in the East Austin barrio. Almost 90% of Economy's workforce lived within walking distance of each other. Meetings took place in the homes of employees. In only a matter of weeks since James visited Economy, an in-plant organizing committee is formed. Although 40% of the workforce were women, only 3 were on the committee. Upon its creation, the committee began to circulate UIU signature authorization cards and a petition to unionize.
We got to the point where we felt like that we had as close to 100% of the people there signing an authorization card so that we could petition the National Labor Relations Board and tell them that we wanted a union there. We did that, and the board examined the cards, and then they certified us as a bargaining agent there. The company refused to recognize the card check, so we went to an election.
The election was set to take place on May 17, 1968, in the company's cafeteria. A few weeks following the announcement, in April, the first of a series of mass meetings took place at the Cristo Rey Catholic Church, located in the heart of the East Austin barrio. The purpose of the meetings was to inform members and supporters of developments in their efforts to unionize Economy. Ensuing meetings also took place at the Santa Julius Catholic Church. Management realized that the bulk of the company's workforce was professed Catholics. Bishop Louis J. Riker, the first bishop of Catholic Diocese of Austin, was invited to speak to the employees.
Miss Helen Smith, the owner of the company of Economy Furniture, she knew the bishop very well. Matter of fact, I'm going back and forth on a lot of this, and when we were first, before we had the vote for whether we wanted the union to represent us or not, she brought the bishop over to one of the meetings that she held in the cafeteria. So everybody had to attend the meeting, and the bishop was there trying to talk us out of voting for the union, and said that we should kneel down and pray that the union don't come in there,
The workers informed the Upholsters International Union about the captive audience meetings at the plant. 3 days before the union elections, James Johns sent a telegram to Economy Furniture suggesting that they had violated the National Labor Relations Act, and he demanded that a union meeting be held at the factory before the election. However, on May 15th, the union organizers responded with a letter from Father Frank Briganti, director of the Bishop's Committee for Spanish-Speaking in the Diocese of Austin.
Is the Catholic Church opposed to unions? To answer this simply, no. The Catholic Church is not opposed to unions. Is the Catholic Church in the Diocese of Austin opposed to the particular attempt at organizing a union at Economy Furniture? Again, to answer this simply, the Catholic Church does not express an opinion either for or against the organizational drive at Economy Furniture. Now, what's my personal opinion concerning the organizational drive? Simply, I think it's a good thing.
Father Briganti's letter resonated strongly with the workers at the factory. On May 17, 1968, the NLRB-sponsored union election was held in the company's cafeteria. The workers voted in favor of the UIU Local 456 by a margin of 252 to 83 out of a possible 335 valid votes. Economy Furniture Company immediately hired attorney James J. Loeffler of the law firm of Fulbright, Crooker, Freeman, Bates, and Jaworski.
The way those firms operated, they have a labor section, that is an anti-union section or whatever, but they had a package of stuff that they would then send out to everybody, and truthfully, they were effective packages, and many times the unions lost the election, and that was the end of the deal, and the employer paid the Fulbright Jaworski a big fee, and everybody went off. They went off happy. Fulbright went happy, the employer happy, and the workers not so happy, but that was the pattern.
On May 24th, Loeffler appealed the results of the election with the NLRB in Houston. As a result, Economy was not required to recognize the Local 456 and negotiate a contract. On July 9th, 1968, the NLRB Regional Director, Clifford W. Potter, issued his report and recommendations. He prescribed that all objections be overruled. Economy responded by filing another appeal with the NLRB in Washington, D.C. on August 2, 1968. That move rendered all legal actions to a stalemate until a ruling was made in June of the following year.
Their attorneys were advising them to keep fighting us. So they were extending it and extending it and extending it. And we felt like that the company, we felt that we didn't have no respect. The company was not respecting us at all.
The organizers of the Local 456 decided that their next course of action had to raise the stakes and strike at the heart of the Economy Furniture Company. On the night of November 21, 1968, the Fellowship Hall of Cristo Rey Catholic Church was filled with economy workers and their families. The call to strike resounded over the crowd.
We decided that we wanted to have a strike vote. And again, the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of going out on strike because we felt that the company did not respect us at all. And basically the reason that we did go out on strike, we voted overwhelmingly to go out on strike, was because the company did not respect us in any way.
On the morning of November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving, approximately 275 employees walked away from the Economy Furniture Company and officially went on strike.
Anybody who goes on strike is making an enormous commitment. That is, they're trying to explain they're not going to be getting a paycheck here for a while, and they're doing it for a cause. But that's not typically not easily received, and so they've got family that doesn't approve of union, all of it. So it's a huge, as I say, a huge commitment where they are stepping out of a traditional role into something that is unknown and scary, and they've already been scared half to death by the lawyer anyway.
The strikers had halted production at the Economy Furniture plant. Helen and Milton Smith saw the walkout as a personal betrayal, and they immediately fired all the strikers. They contacted local law officials to break up the crowd of disgruntled workers. Those contacted included Captain Y.A. Alley and the Texas Rangers.
Captain Y.A. Alley was part gringo, part Latino Texas Ranger, and a scary figure for us, as well as the rest of the Texas Rangers. Y.A. Alley showed up at our picket line during the first week with a contingency of Rangers, and in a bus that looked like it belonged to the Texas Rangers, loaded us all up. It took us out of town and dropped us off about 10 miles out of town, where we had to walk back.
And it was hard. You get scared. You hear about the Texas Rangers, first thing you think, these guys are going to take me out to the country and shoot me, do something to me. You never know.
Economy hires security guards from Texas Security Systems to keep a constant presence at the factory and intimidate the strikers. As a result, confrontations between the strikers and the security guards occurred regularly throughout the labor dispute. The picket line formed every day from the walkout November 28, 1968, until March of 1971.
Remember that on strike, you lost the wages that you normally would make at a job. Although we got a little bit of strike wages paid, strike compensation, the men and the women that were working there lost their insurances. And I know of at least 3 cases where, because of this commitment for the future of their families, that 3 of the small children passed away because of lack of good health care, good preventative care.
It was very hard because my husband and I, and we had the kids, 3 kids, and we were renting, and we went to pay the rent to the guy, and the guy said, no, because you're already behind. And it wasn't that we were behind. No, I'm not behind. He threw us out. We had to go move with my sister, live with her, until we were able to buy a house. And a white man, a salesman, helped us to be able to buy the house because we didn't have no income, except for my husband being a projectionist in a drive-in. It was very hard.
In December of 1968, the Local 456 devised a new tactic to protest Economy's refusal to negotiate a new contract. Milton Smith's philanthropy and involvement in the community had earned him an appointment to Austin's Human Relations Commission. Ironically, one of the purposes of the Human Relations Commission was to investigate complaints made by workers against their employers. In early December of 1968, the strikers and their supporters appeared before the commission to seek Smith's removal from the panel. arguing that Smith discriminated against the Mexican-American employees. As evidence of this allegation, the strikers presented economy's objections to the union election. The document referred to the workers as, quote, uneducated Mexican people. In addition, the document brazenly described Father Brigante as a self-styled but stupid and uninformed emancipator of the Mexican-American people. Smith was not aware of the derogatory language in the objections prior to its filing date. Once he learned of the insults, he immediately filed for a language change, but the damage had already been done. Resentment towards Milton and economy had spread over the Mexican-American community.
Milton Smith referred to his employees as dumb, ignorant, uneducated Mexicans who are being bamboozled by this union organization. What do you think about an owner that would refer to the people who have in fact dedicated themselves to working hard and making him a profit?
From December of 1968 through January of 1969, the Human Relations Commission held full and open hearings on the Smith case. By the end of the hearings, the commission voted 12-7 in favor of Milton's removal. However, members of the HRC are appointed by Austin City Council. If Smith is to be dismissed, the council would have to do so. On January 17, 1969, the City Council rendered its decision in Milton Smith's favor by 2-4 margin. Milton retained his position with the Austin Human Relations Commission. Despite that decision of the Austin City Council, the language used in the objections and the Local 456 appearance at the HRC began to propel the labor dispute into the Chicano movement that was spreading all over Texas. The economy furniture strike had matriculated into a full-blown movement known as the Austin Chicano Huelga.
I think I was aware, in a general sense, that we were beginning to see change in activism within the Hispanic community. And there were, well, by this point, Henry Gonzalez, I guess, was certainly had been a significant figure. But it was all just bubbling up, and I'm not sure I realized what this was, the implications were for here in Travis County, here in Austin. But I certainly realized it somewhere along the line.
In the spring of '69, the Chicano political group La Lucha placed their full endorsement and support behind 25-year-old Santo Buddy Ruiz for Austin City Council Place 5. The elections were held April 5, 1969. Santo gained 31% of the vote, second to Stuart McCorkle's 41%. With no candidate having a clear 51% majority, Ruiz and McCorkle entered a runoff election on May 3rd.
And remember, I was a youngster at the time, so some of the things I understood, some I didn't understand. Understand it more now. I'll connect those two. Latino involvement was nil. We had no elected officials. There were no candidates ever proposed or stepped forward to do that. Latinos largely depended on the gringo or Anglo establishment for favors and for leadership and guidance. The closest that we had could perhaps be leaders were our businessmen in the community. And they too were afraid. They were afraid that if they didn't go along with what the larger community and at the time, in fact, larger conservative community, the time was moderate to conservative, the Ben Barnes, the LBJs, the John Conleys that ran this city through the elected officials. If you didn't play ball with them, you didn't play ball. You were a businessman, go to a bank, try to get a loan. If you bucked the powers to be in this area. So businessmen were afraid to do anything.
On May 3rd, Stuart McCorkle defeated Santo Ruiz 54% to 46%. although Reyes did not win a seat on the Austin City Council, his candidacy had played a crucial role in mobilizing a community that had been politically dormant. During the summer of 1969, Richard Moya, a former legal aid, investigator, and printer, announced his candidacy for Travis County Commissioner, Precinct 4. The Huelguistas quickly became the central support for Moya.
Every day, when they got off the picket line, and they were on the picket line only 1 hour a day, they would come down to the little old headquarters we had there in East Austin, and they would make signs. We made everything. We didn't have anything printed. We made our own signs. We went and put them up, and these guys were my workforce. They were also doing a door-to-door, and without a doubt, I couldn't have won that race without the help of the economy strikers, and I'm happy to say that because it's very, very, very true. And the story I tell, and it's hard for me to tell it, is that 1 week before the election, we decided that we needed to run some radio spots, and we didn't have any money. And so John got the word out, Trevino got the word out, we needed to raise something like $1,200. It wasn't an insurmountable amount. And so the strikers found out about it. And so what they did, they got like $21 to be on the picket line. And that last week, before the campaign ended, we needed that money for radio, they all signed those checks over to us. And I mean, they needed that money a heck of a lot more than I needed radio spots. But that's what they wanted to do, and we bought the radio spots, and we won.
With the help of the Huelguistas, in 1970, Richard Moya became the first Mexican-American elected official to serve Travis County. On June 13, 1969, the NLRB in Washington, D.C. upheld the decision of the NLRB in Houston. However, Economy continued to not recognize the Local 456 and filed a lawsuit to appeal the NLRB's decision with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans. In protest, the Local 456 partnered with Lucha and began to organize a small demonstration. The Austin Chicano Strike at Economy demonstration would not only commemorate the labor dispute at Economy Furniture, but would also bring awareness to the treatment of Mexican Americans statewide. Unfortunately, the Austin City Council posed an obstacle yet again.
We went before the city council and requested a parade permit to hold this rally, and it was unanimously opposed by the city council. So when that happened, the reporters interviewed us later and said, "What are you guys going to do?"
Sisto Ramirez, co-founder of Lucha, and Buddy Ruiz ignored the decision and announced that the march is to continue as planned. At the urging of the city council, on November 28th, Judge Tom Blackwell issued a restraining order against Buddy and Sisto. Again, both men ignored the warning and attended the demonstration. On November 30th, 1969, a few hundred gathered at the Texas State Capitol building to hear speeches from some of the most prominent civil rights activists in American history. Dr. Hector P. Garcia, founder of the American GI Forum. Jose Angel Gutierrez, co-founder of the Mexican American Youth Organization. And Albert Pena, who is the first Mexican American to be elected to the Bexar County Commission. After the speeches concluded, a small march proceeded through downtown Austin along the sidewalks. The demonstrators caused no traffic disturbances and obeyed all crosswalks and street signs. The Chicano strike at the Economy Furniture Company slowly progressed from December 1969 through the summer of 1970. However, since the spring of 1969, Economy had employed replacement workers to fill the vacant jobs. During the height of the labor dispute, Economy had an estimated workforce of 400 employees. As a result, violent encounters between the Huelguistas and the scab workers occurred regularly until the end of the strike. But in the fall of 1970, the Local 456 began a new tactic to bring Milton Smith and Economy Furniture to the negotiating table. Gonzalo Barrientos, a program officer for the Volunteers in Service to America, sent program volunteer and University of Texas student Janet Newton to the local 456 to assist in their community efforts. Soon, she is hired as the Public Information Coordinator. Janet described her involvement in Mary Elizabeth Riley's thesis, The Austin Chicano Huelga.
They needed some work done out at strike headquarters, so I went out there and started to work with them. When they decided to form the advisory board, I agreed to be the informations coordinator. If I wasn't in class, that's where I was. I'd often be there until 2, 3 a.m. I pretty much lived there.
Also that fall, Lencho is hired as the new boycott coordinator. The hiring of Lencho and Newton were key elements to the local 456 next tactic. The strikers announced a boycott on all products manufactured by Economy Furniture Company. Pickets were set up at vendors all over Austin and began to spread to other parts of the state. Boycott chapters were established in Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio.
Go and pass out leaflets in front of these stores and stuff, and appeal to the people there not to shop, not to buy this economy furniture at these stores. Most of the time it was very helpful. People were responding to our appeal, except in Victoria, Texas.
They went down to Victoria and picketed a Lax being a big, heavy hitter politically down in Victoria, a Lax department store or furniture store down there. And I think they got busted down there. I was trying to remember, I'm almost certain I went down to Victoria on a criminal case, minor criminal case.
They called the sheriff's department, and we had taken a busload of people down there, and we all wound up in jail. Because they said that we were trespassing and stuff, and our attorney was able to get them to release us, and no charges were filed against us as a result of that.
They really went and did the deal. And Lencho I think had fun in it.
Though the official boycott did not start until the fall of 1970, underground student newspapers and community newsletters had printed lists of stores to boycott since 1969. The boycott delivered a major victory to the Huelguistas, as Craddock Furniture announced that it would no longer sell economy products until the settlement was reached. The boycott caused significant financial losses to the Economy Furniture Company. Though most companies did not stop buying Economy's products, some did voice their concern about the contentious labor dispute. The Austin Chicano Huelga continued the boycott until a contract was in place. As the 2-year anniversary of the walkout approached, the Austin Chicano Huelga began to organize the second Chicano strike at Economy demonstration in March. Lencho began a massive letter-writing campaign asking for outside support for the demonstration. He sent letters to presidential and vice presidential candidates, Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Walter Mondale, and United Farm Workers founder Cesar Chavez. All men declined due to what they said were scheduling conflicts. Cesar Chavez responded.
My work right now is extremely hectic and will be so until the end of the year. I know how extremely important this rally is. I have tried to do all I can to rearrange my schedule, but the dates and obligations pressing upon me are too much and too demanding. Possibly some other time and date can be arranged. I do not wish to cut off the bonds that bind us.
Chavez's decline was met with angry criticism. In any case, the organizers knew that this time the demonstration would be much bigger than the previous one because Texas was fully engaged in a statewide Chicano civil rights movement. On October 15, 1970, Attorney Dave Richards and Mr. Timoteo Mendoza, president of the Local 456, appeared before the Austin City Council to request a parade permit for the second Chicano strike at Economy Furniture demonstration in March. After assuring the council that the demonstration would not be a strike or picket of any downtown business, the City Council approved the permit by a 2-4 margin.
Our commitment to a march was twofold. One, it was to join as brothers in a march for in support of the Austin Chicano Huelguista movement through East Austin. It was to begin in deep East Austin, from Go Valley, and we were to march through East Austin, down Cesar Chavez to the Capitol, to the center of government for this city and the state.
On November 29, 1970, the organizers met to discuss the events that were to follow. By 2 o'clock, thousands gathered at the state capitol, stretching from the steps of the building to 11th Street. The demonstration was in full progress. Father Zanotas began the ceremonies with a brief benediction. Like the first demonstration, the Austin Chicano Huelga is addressed by a platform of political and civil rights leaders. Bishop Patrick Flores, member of the Priests Associated for Religious Education and Social Rights, also known as Padres. Rodolfo Carqui Gonzalez, leader of the Crusade for Justice. And Travis County Commissioner Richard Moya. Victor Ruiz Jr. addressed the crowd.
We understand one thing. There exist two laws, two justices, one for the rich and one for the poor. One justice for the worker, one for the businessman. Because of this, the Huelguistas have dedicated themselves to destroying this system. This is not the course of merely the Huelguistas. It is the reality of our brothers of race. The strikers are fighting for the dignity of Chicanos. We're fighting for our union. We're fighting to be heard.
The march began at 4 o'clock. Thousands of supporters filed through downtown Austin, following the same route from a year prior, this time in the middle of the road.
That second march that we had, I was real, apprehensive because we had police, like the DPS and everybody. I mean, you're talking about platoons or something like that. It seemed like it, they were covered all over the place, and then helicopters and stuff. And I was afraid because, sometimes, when any little spark will create a big riot, and it was very close to it too, because I don't know, but I feel like that some of the people that we had in our march, not necessarily our people, but people that came in support, might have had some stuff that would have done some damage, and that's why I was scared. I was scared that something like that would happen. I'm glad it didn't. Everybody kept their cool, and everything came out okay.
From 6 p.m. until midnight, 2,000 demonstrators filed into the City Coliseum, where they enjoyed each other's company and forged new alliances. The rally and demonstration was a rousing success for the Huelguistas. 2 days after the second Chicano strike demonstration in March, Lencho sent another letter to Cesar Chavez, proclaiming the success of the massive event. That letter reached Chavez as he sat in a Monterey County, California jail. On December 19th, Lencho finally received word from Chavez. The following day, a press release announced that Chavez definitely plans to attend a benefit rally for the Local 456 in February of 1971, permitting he is released from jail. The news spread quickly over the capital city. On January 27, 1971, 2 years and 2 months after the walkout, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled to enforce the decision of the NLRB. The Economy Furniture Company had nearly exhausted all legal means, but Loeffler suggested that the company could petition the Texas Supreme Court. The Austin Chicano huelga continued to strengthen the movement against the company. On February 1, 1971, Janet Newton and Henry Munoz, Jr., Human Resources Director of the Texas AFL-CIO, appeared before the Travis County Commissioners Court to seek a proclamation of Cesar Chavez Day.
What happened was that after I got elected, I worked in a Senate print shop for 6 months. I was a printer, okay? So he got me a job there, printing. And I'm sitting over there in my office, about 30 minutes before the meeting started, and I get a call from this guy that works in the Senate print shop. His name is Alex Martinez. And he says, what did you do to make Senator Wayne Conley mad at you? I said, I don't even know Wayne Conley. I mean, I know who he is, but I don't know him. Why? He said, well, he just came down here early this morning, and he brought this thing down, an excerpt from the House Un-American Activities Committee that met, I don't know when, 50-something. I remember, I was in the Army, I remember when they were having those meetings, and he had me reproduce 2-3 pages of it, and got me to, and had me, I haven't done it yet, he said, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to send a courier over to the Commissioner's Courthouse with these things I'm reprinting, and there's one addressed to every member of the Commissioner's Court except you. And I said, well, what does it say? He said, well, they underlined that part where it says that Cesar Chavez attended that Soloneski school and that he's a communist. And I said, well, I have this thing on the agenda to make it Cesar Chavez Day. I'm sure that's what it's about. So I said, okay. So I'm sitting there in my office, and all our offices were lined up one against the other. And I saw the courier come in, and I saw him drop those brown envelopes in everybody's office except mine. So, and I never told this story publicly, but once. I'm telling it twice now. So I said, well, that's not very fair, man. So I got up and went to each one of the commissioners' offices and picked up the brown envelopes and threw them all in the trash, in my trash can. So I made this motion to make it Cesar Chavez Day in Travis County, and it passed 5-0. and so about an hour later, these commissioners started calling me and said, what the heck? Man, I'm getting lots of calls. That guy's a communist or something. He's not a communist. He's a labor leader, man.
On February 5, 1971, after anxious anticipation, Cesar Chavez arrived at Austin's Mueller Airport. Thousands of people showed up to welcome him to the capital city. On February 6, 1971, thousands of supporters filed to the Montopolis Community Center to see the civil rights activist. After months of hoping and waiting, Cesar Chavez finally spoke to the Austin Chicano huelguistas.
The boycott is so powerful because it is the extension of love between one person and another. It allows people in New York, California, or other parts of the country to support in a very direct way the efforts of the strikers here in Austin. Once you get a boycott in motion, nothing on this good earth can stop it except a signed contract.
For the next 2 days, Chavez joined the huelguistas on the picket line at Economy and at local vendors of economy products.
Cesar Chavez, for us, walked on water. Latinos don't have many national heroes. The closest we get are our elected officials, but we didn't have the Martin Luther Kings, and we didn't have the Bobby Kennedys, and we didn't have these leaders who we believed were a blessing to our community. At the time, you walked into any home in East Austin and you would see a picture of the Last Supper, okay? Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples. You might see a picture of Martin Luther King, but you always saw a picture of Cesar Chavez someplace on the wall. That's what he symbolized to us. He was our hero.
March 3, 1971, 260 members of the local 456 filled the fellowship hall at Santa Julia Catholic Church. After testimony and recommendations from Attorney Dave Richards, the strikers voted to ask for full reinstatement and ended the 2.5-year strike. The move was a means of bargaining in good faith with the company. However, the boycott did not cease until a contract is in place. In response to the vote, on March 8th, Economy announced that they would be delighted to take back the workers. 5 days later, over 200 union members showed up at the factory but found locked gates and a skeleton crew at work.
If they were unfair labor practice strikers as opposed to economic strikers, the employer had an obligation to reinstate them immediately upon request. Failing to do so, the employer, the tab begins to run because back pay is. So when in March 71, we unconditionally asked for reinstatement. March 13th, they didn't put them back to work. Back pay began to run for every one of those people that day. From that point forward, we were on their payroll.
March 18, 1971, Council for Economy Furniture and the Austin Chicano Huelga met in downtown Austin to discuss terms of reinstatement. By the end of that meeting, the strikers learned that Economy had agreed to return them to their jobs. The workers were to present themselves to Helen Smith from March 22nd through March 31st, 1971. In effect, the scab workers that Economy hired now had to be discharged if necessary. Those who crossed and joined the union were regarded as original members and had to be reinstated as well. By the end of the summer, 141 members of the local 456 had applied for reinstatement. All but 5 members were allowed to return to those jobs. Unfortunately, those who were most active in the strike, Lancho Hernandez, Margarito Saucedo, Jem Ruiz, Frank Ramirez, and Antonio Quiros. Helen and Milton Smith had finally reached a point where they could no longer allow Economy to continue its fight against the local 456. In September 1971, Richard Karotkin and Robert Herrera, president of the local 456, announced that an agreement had finally been reached. The contract provided for increased wages, departmental seniority, daily overtime, and an additional week of paid vacation. Economy also agreed to pay a lump sum of $15,000 in back pay to eligible union members. Finally, after 2.5 years, Economy Furniture had successfully been unionized. It should be noted that the Economy Furniture strike was the single blight to Helen and Milton Smith's rich history of philanthropy and service to the community. They funded scholarships to the University of Texas at Austin, donated beds and equipment to Holy Cross Hospital, and both were extremely involved with B'nai B'rith International. However, the Economy Furniture strike was much more than a labor dispute between employees and management. It was a part of the Chicano movement that gripped the state of Texas in the 1970s. After the Economy Furniture strike had ended, the political and social activism that began in the labor dispute continued to flourish in Austin's Mexican-American community. In 1972, Gus Garcia, a member of the HRC who fought to remove Milton Smith from the commission, became the first Mexican-American to serve on the Austin Independent School Board of Trustees. 2 years later, in 1974, Gonzalo Barrientos, the Vista trainer who provided Janet Newton to the Huelguistas, is voted to the Texas State House of Representatives, becoming the first Mexican-American to represent Travis County. And in 1975, Johnny Trevino, campaign manager to Richard Moya and Gonzalo Barrientos, became the first Mexican-American elected to the Austin City Council. The economy furniture strike remains a little noted but important part of Texas history.